Okay, well, as you know, I'm always full of surprises in this course, and today's no exception. So Dr. Tazinski is ill today. It's a fairly minor illness, but at this moment is severe enough that he doesn't feel that he can lecture. So one thing that you were going to miss this term that every other student has always had in the past is a feedback session, because I told you about those party-like events that all previous terms have had that you're not having, and a part of that was feedback, sort of discussion about the course and ways that I could improve the course, and also questions about procedures in the course and that sort of thing. So that's what I would propose that we do, and it's up to you how long it runs. Now, in those evening sessions, it was always kind of amusing to me. It's the last thing that we did, and you would think people would be eager to get out of there to see girlfriends, boyfriends, all sorts of more important things than being there. But sometimes the feedback session went on a really long time, which I thought was sort of cool. It says something about the course that people would be that passionate about staying and talking about the course at 10 p.m. or something. So that's not the circumstance now. This is a normal time of the day, and you're not terribly stressed. So what I thought is, like, some of you may not know, I keep talking about how the rules that govern the course are on the course website, but you may not really know what that means. So there is this thing starts, the way it looks at the top, it's kind of, so it begins with the course description like it's in the catalog, and you have to scroll way down to get the important things. But you keep going and going and going and going and going and going, and finally you get down to grading in general, and then the grading of the final paper, and the lecture critique, the student presentation, the exemplar papers. One of the cool things about those papers is they violate some of the rules, which is how normal life should be, right? They're really excellent papers, but you'll see that because I was required to put down all these rules, and I had those papers before that I really like, and those papers did very well, those students did very well. It's kind of cool and kind of makes life fair in some sense that they do, at least in mild ways, violate some of the rules that we've put down. And general policies and so on. So this is all, where is this? If you go up here, it's here where it says course outline. So that's where you get that. And I actually look at that when I'm grading the papers, because on the one hand, I like to just have paper grading be a kind of stream of consciousness sort of thing, and sort of I get in a zone and I grade the papers, but on the other hand, I realize I could be in deep trouble if what I'm doing in that zone where I'm grading the papers is in stark conflict with what it says here. So I try to do it like it says here. The presentation sessions are usually quite a lot of fun and quite interesting. They're as interesting as the lectures in the course. They always have been, except in the year when I had 14 students, the bottom 2 students, those presentations weren't very interesting, but otherwise. So, and Dr. Wah will be here. There'll probably be some other faculty, maybe. So it's not just me reacting, and I think you'll find it an enjoyable and valuable experience. The video editing used to cost me money. I was actually paying for the video editing, and now the video editing is free, but it's a little slower. So I think that if you're in a circumstance where you think that your presentation was really like the best thing that ever happened to you in your life, maybe you could let me know that that video is very, very important. And I can then indicate to the videography team that we need to give that higher priority, because it's a little bit accidental why it is that some presentations appear on YouTube in 3 days and some appear after 3 weeks. So anyway, it may be that it's not really important to you, and that you can't watch yourself for psychological reasons. A lot of people are sort of like that. They won't ever watch themselves, and therefore it's not important to you that this video be out fast. And if you do happen to give like the most boring presentation, then we're probably not going to do the video. So we don't video everything. We have it, but we don't process it further. If it looks like mankind's not really going to be uplifted by having this this video on YouTube, then we won't put it there. Things I'm already planning to do next term. I thought that we need more space orientation. We already have that, but kind of to get in more to how the singularity on the one hand and space exploration and colonizing other planets and all that kind of thing, how those sort of intersect. The other is medicine as you understood medicine before this course. Like you probably had a little sort of a concept of what medicine is. Then you were shocked when you started taking this course and find that most days we're not really talking about that traditional view of what medicine is. We're talking about medicine writ large, and things that are medicine sort of in a more general sense, or health in a more general sense. So I plan to have more lectures that are really around what new technologies there are specifically in medicine in 2015 and that sort of thing, because I think that it's a little bit missing right now, that facet of things. So those are kind of my thoughts about, but why don't we get some of your thoughts or your questions? So, I mean, you can either, engage me in a very general matters having to do with the course, or specific matters about the presentations next week and, the paper and all that kind of thing. So anything's fair game. So why don't one of you take the microphone and ask me a question. There are no wrong questions or stupid questions. Everything's fair game. So go for it.
I have a specific question.
Yes.
For the paper, I'm finding as I write it, it's getting very opinion-based.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah. I mean, some things are really, when you get down to it, completely opinion, right? Like even quantum biology right now, the proof, the absolute proof that it's really important today and that it, governs lots of things is missing. So in a sense, the more speculative the subject is, the more naturally, opinion-based your paper will be. And I don't want something with no speculation at all, because that doesn't really fit the course. So it can't just be, you understand there's something called medical technology and medical technologists, and you're going to talk about medical technology. No, that's wrong. It has to be about the subjects that we're talking about in this course, like exponential change and machines becoming smarter than we are, and existential risks, things technology-based that could wipe us all out. And the counterbalancing ideas to those, is it possible that rather than mankind accelerating very quickly, something bad could happen and we really slow down, or, something brings us back to, caveman times or something. So we're always trying to give you the balance so that you don't end up feeling that there's only one scenario for the future that one can grasp hold of. I think that there are many different beliefs that are all sort of equally valid at the moment. So no, I don't mind opinion. If it's totally opinion-based with no references in an area where a lot of other people have been writing about this and there's good stuff, and you obviously have been just sort of hiding under a rock and thinking your own thoughts and not reading anybody else's stuff, that will obviously not do as well as something that's opinion-based, but also reflects on what other people have already said about this. So does that answer?
Yeah, I have sort of a quick follow-up with regards to that. If we sort of start at a point where it's closer to now, and then sort of say we predict that we'll get sort of jump forward in the future and go from there as well, is that also okay?
Yeah, yes. I think you don't have to fill in all the gaps. Depending upon what you're talking about, there are a huge number of gaps. Like, if you're going to say, okay, well, some people believe that the singularity will occur in 2045. Some people think it'll be 2145 or later, it'll still happen, but a lot later. Well, so what's the intermediate position? Right now, today, when you make an automated phone call, it's probably better than a real person. So what does that mean? So what is it going to be like 5 years, 10 years? You don't have to hit every single time point there. It's sort of impossible to give us the like that cartoon that I posted on Facebook recently. The projected times of the robots working for Apple Computer becoming liberated and escaping out the front door of the Apple store, and then protesting at coffee shops that they're not being served and being treated as second-class citizens. They were postulating that it would be like in the year 3000 or later that all this would happen, and I think that's crazy. They would be that far off. But on the other hand, who knows exactly? So I think I'm not going to criticize you if you assume that something is going to occur in 50 years that actually I don't think is going to occur in 100, or vice versa. And you don't need to connect all of the dots. So in this short paper, everything is cohesive and totally convincing. I don't think that's possible. There have to be some logical jumps. There have to be some leaps of faith, Deus ex machina, whatever you would say, magically things happen rather than explaining exactly how this thing got there at that time. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
I was just wondering how closely our presentations have to resemble our papers. So let's say we have 10 headings in our papers, and would we have to talk about all 10 headings in the presentation, or can we kind of select certain topics to go on the presentation?
You can pick any topic that is in some way related to the course, and as long as the philosophy of what you're talking about is not completely, backward. Like one guy talked about cardiac pacemakers, and sort of from the past until today. Well, that's not really what I'm looking for. That is like not the future. That's the past and now. So if you pick a subject that's about technology and medicine and you talk about the past and now, that's not really what I'm looking for. Sorry, do you want to ask me again? Yeah.
Is it okay if our presentation resembles our paper in terms
Yes,
of like
yeah,
topics?
no, they can be practically the same thing. They can be word for word the same. I think you wouldn't really want that because it's more fun to give a presentation that's just natural speech. You wouldn't want to read it, and it's just more. But I think if it's as close as it would naturally be if you just get up and talk about a paper that you've written, that's fine. They don't have to be separate. They're expected to be on the same subject, and so they can be very, very similar. And a lot of it depends upon how confident you are about the writing of your paper. If you think this is like the best intellectual product you've ever created and the writing is just awesome, then having a presentation that's very strongly based on the paper makes a lot of sense. If you're sort of a video game and oral communication person who kind of struggles with writing and writing doesn't seem natural for you, then likely you would want to give the presentation on the same subject as a paper, but maybe in a very different way, as if you were talking about the latest video game or something, rather than writing a paper. So it depends on what skills you feel you have and what you enjoy and where your strengths are. But there's no problem from my point of view if the two are very, very similar. If the one sort of complements the other, if the presentation is more memorable because they've got this very strong paper, and the paper is more memorable because I can remember points that you talked about in the presentation, that's fine. It's also fine if they're on the same subject, but you don't find it convenient to put the same content in them both. If you feel that there's sort of this other stuff that you're really eager to talk about, but there's just not time, for it in either the presentation or in the paper. You can have that material appear in one and not in the other. So they don't have to be the same. They have to be on the same subject, but they don't have to be the same in terms of the content. You can look at Aisha Harian's presentation, for instance, just in terms of what might happen later, whether you're going to become a YouTube sensation, sort of thing, it was quite amazing the attention that got. On the other hand, it doesn't have a huge number of hits now. So I mean, it ended up with a job offer and her meeting a lot of important people that she didn't previously know in the world and stuff. But we thus far haven't had one of the student videos or any of the faculty videos that have truly gone viral. We're sort of stuck at about 2,500 hits, and nothing's gone beyond that. So, but that's still, it's a lot of people and a lot of hits. So, yeah, I think it's up to you. There are many things to weigh. When we started talking about this course, we were thinking about the circumstance where some students would take the course and then continue to sort of interact with us forever, to develop kind of projects that went beyond the course and keep going and going. And I mean, you know some people who have kind of done that. Ross has done that. Ashlyn Bernier and so on. So there are people for whom this course loomed quite large and was kind of life-changing. And there are other people for perfectly legitimate reasons where this is just another course, you know. So I think I accept both of those. So it's impossible to make this life-changing for each one of you. And it's nice that some people feel that it is, you know, so that's good. And you have to realize, and you know, this is something very exciting about yourself that you may not have realized. You're part of a very small minority in terms of students who would actually want to take this course. I think there probably in any term, let's say 14 to 16 human beings on this, you know, campus who actually would enjoy the course, would value it and so on, and we promote it like mad to try to find those, but that's like 14 people out of 39,000, right? So it makes you pretty special. So you're already special for just taking the course. Now, whether you're special in a way that only I value or that your friends and associates would also value, maybe they think you're really weird and stupid and other things for taking the course. But yeah, so you've already sort of, you know, distinguished yourself. That's kind of how I think about it. To be honest, I've not done a lot of, you know, teaching courses that I was personally, you know, responsible for. It's more teaching large courses where somebody else was like running the course. And when I found out that in a course like this, you could like all get, you know, A's, I was amazed. I started out thinking that there needed to be a curve, and you know. So the fact that in a, you know, graduate course that everybody can get high grades was, you know, amazing to me. And so now we have a situation where we have mostly, you know, undergrads taking the course, but it's a, you know, graduate course. So it's a pretty good deal, really, I think, when you think about it. So and I also feel that while I'd encourage you to help find other students who would like to take the course, I'm not trying to force the issue. I'm not trying to get people to sign up for this course who would not really like it, you know, whose concerns are very practical here and now, and you know they kind of look at life in a practical way. There's important challenges right now, and who the heck cares what's going to go on in 31 years, you know? I'll get to that when I come to it. So I mean, that's a very normal way to think. That's the way a lot of people think. And they probably wouldn't find this course very relevant to their lives. I've often talked with other faculty about whether the time will come where this course is required for somebody, you know, required for, you know, medical students or something. And yeah, I think that'll happen, but I think we're ways away from that. So yeah, so I think that's one way to think of it. That it's true that by doing really well in your paper and your presentation, you can become special. But in a way, you're already a little bit special right now just by taking the course. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Other questions? Yeah.
I'm just wondering what you think of maybe for future classes, having a speaker that can speculate on the government and the politics of the singularity. So say if you reach a point where we achieve the singularity, or everyone becomes immortal, like what would happen to countries? What would happen, like the concept of the United Nations? And
yeah, I think the politics are very interesting, and we could probably interest people in, political science and stuff in talking about that. It's a matter of my finding somebody who, first of all, has the knowledge base, and secondly, actually believes this is going to happen. They're not speculating about something that they absolutely do not believe in. So we've had a bunch of situations like that. When the course began, there was a lawyer, Calgary-based lawyer, who was interested in politics and those sorts of things, and also in human consciousness. And so he gave a lecture in the course. It didn't really work all that well, and so part of it is kind of just this accidental thing of my finding the right people to teach in the course. And so you can also help with that. If there's somebody that you know who you think would bring that sort of extra, facet that we don't have now, I would certainly welcome that. And I even welcome that if there are some, behavior problems. So with Jack, who's one of our best lecturers, the first time that he taught here was a real, bait and switch. He said he was going to talk about one thing, and he talked about something else. Because he talks about computerized drug design most of the time, and so he can do that anytime he has a lecture off the shelf. So told us he was going to talk about quantum biology, and he came and he talked about that. And for the first time, I heard the word boring. I told him that we've never heard this word boring before in the course today. So he's kind of distinguished himself now. So he has like the worst lecture ever in the course, and the second best. So I'm willing to take risks on people like that. Often very, very bright, creative people are a little bit unusual to deal with, but that's fine. I'm sort of used to that. So if you know of other people like that, I had Ken Chapman talk last term, because nobody had talked about the oil sands. And I still think we need, I mean, in this province, talking about, technology, we kind of need a presentation on that. So he's a kind of politician-like lawyer, and he doesn't use slides, and so he gave a 40-minute presentation without slides, which doesn't really work all that well. I've tried to get, the dean of engineering to work here and to speak here. That also doesn't really work because he's a very powerful person. He's been the dean for 17 years. It just, it doesn't kind of make sense to him. So if you can think of people that you feel would be worthwhile to teach in the course, I'd asked our current dean of medicine, and it was announced yesterday that he's leaving in January, so that's obviously not going to happen. So we've had the Dean of Science, the Dean of Arts. There will be a new Dean of Arts. I'll approach that person, but I'm open to suggestions. There are a lot of kind of very polarized and radical views that we don't tend to talk about here that we could. You can easily find these on the internet. For instance, there's, I think, probably completely bogus article today about the idea that there have been nuclear explosions in the past on Mars. and that there's evidence of this. I think that's probably, entirely false, but it takes you down another path. Well, how could that be? There's another civilization. How could there have been nuclear explosions on Mars in the past? So I'd like to avoid side avenues where we're obviously getting into a lot of pseudoscience and, bogus stuff. I think it's more valuable not to exclude ideas that are, but not to end up talking about everything. We had one of the most interesting people that I know in sort of transhumanism speak here once. He's not an academic at all, and it just didn't work very well. He had all these interesting slides, completely chaotic. There was no central theme, and so there are lots of other situations like that where the idea of having celebrities speak here just doesn't work very well practically. It works with David Pierce. I think it's a combination of things. He really enjoys the interaction with you guys, just like you do, the live interaction. I guess there's some evidence that he doesn't enjoy the mentoring on papers quite as much. He still does it, but he's a little bit more reluctant on that side. But he really enjoys the Skype interaction. A lot of other prominent people out there, I think really it doesn't work all that well for them. It doesn't suit their ego, so on. They have a rather high, opinion of themselves, that they are many, many layers of importance above you guys. And so coming down to your level, looking you in the eye, talking to you on Skype just wouldn't work for a lot of those folks. But I want to be doing new things every term, and so even an idea to you that you think is like 40% valid and 60% crazy, I might still be interested in hearing, because I'm always looking for new ideas. I think that I am going to do more of the socializing in future terms. There was one thing, it's really no fault of you guys, but I sort of missed that. I miss the evening parties, presentations in the evening and that sort of thing. So I think in a future term, I would work harder to figure out what time could be, convenient for you guys, who else you might like to bring, how could it be fun for you, and still do that sort of thing, because that's sort of what I'm used to. I'm used to a course that goes beyond, the classroom in a lot of ways. We go to the movies together, we parties together, we have pizza together, all sorts of things like that. So that's what I'm used to, and I think I'll make a greater effort to have that happen in the future. There's also sort of a tradition of whatever you want to call it, the time traveling student or something. Students who come back to speak to like the next term students about what the course is really like and what it meant to them. Students really, enjoy that role. And you might say, well, how do they get to do it? Well, they just need to want to do it. Some of those students haven't been like, the top students at all. It's just the students who are most passionate about speaking to the people in the next term. So, if that, interests you, it's not something that is only, available to like a few of you. I think any of you who wanted to do that, who felt that your thoughts about the course would be valuable to students in the next term, or like one of the students from last term is going to come to this session this coming Tuesday, so she'll be there for some of the student presentations. Did I answer your question, or did I just, okay? Sometimes I can't tell. What pleased me actually with Shauna Pange's teaching here is she's way younger than I am, and something about the split-second delay between your actual voice reaching us and the amplified voice and not coming at exactly the same time. Sometimes it makes it a little bit hard to hear what you're saying, and it's stupid because on video it's crystal clear. It's not like the video is unclear. Just real life, this amplified sound competing with the real sound is a little bit makes it a little bit hard to understand the student questions, and I enjoyed so much the fact that she also found that. So it's not just the thing that happens when you get old and your ears start to go and stuff. So I think it's a real factor for anybody, and I don't know why. It has to do with things that I don't understand sound well enough. It has to do with the exact setting and how much the amplification is and so on. Probably a bunch of other things. Gets back to why Bob Dylan was possible to understand his words when he was young and it's not anymore. It's hard to really figure out all the factors. So, other questions?
The course outline for other years or semesters is quite different from this year. So what do you think happened? Because there's a bunch of lectures previously that did not happen.
So what happened? Julie Lin Wong was going to give 4 lectures, and her life is quite turbulent, and I don't think it's not exactly her fault, and so she ended up not being able to give those lectures. So I figured that, I kind of feel direct maternal or paternal, feeling toward the course, and I always sort of worry about what's going on when I'm out of town anyway, so I thought, well, why not just cancel the classes when I'm not here and go with the remaining. And then the other thing is that having a lot of young people talk in the course is wonderful, but a lot of those are people who are in training programs still where their lives are really not their own. People tell them, what they're supposed to do, and there's a schedule, and the schedule is only known a short time beforehand. So, Abdullah Salah is toward the end of his surgery training, and so his life is just crazy, working nights and all sorts of exciting things, but where you have to be there at certain times and then sleep at odd hours of the day and so on. So it just didn't work for him to teach in this course this term. He is going to teach next term. So that's really what happened. So one of the reasons why I like to do the student presentations in the evening is it gives us more time for the regular presentations. And there is also the fact now that we have really outstanding video from previous terms. So I felt it was actually valid for you to pick videos and watch them, whereas when we began the course, it wouldn't have been logical. The videos were poor quality, and most of them were sort of amateur grade. The background was brown or green or something, and nobody looked normal and so on. Whereas now we all look like we're in heaven with a pure white background. It's actually better than real life. Like facial imperfections, particularly the female lecturers noticed this, that they look better than real life on video. It's probably more pleasing to interact with us in our video selves than it is in real life, because the lighting's just right, and the like the light penetrates part of the skin and not all, and well, you probably understand this better than I do, the way it works. But so we're getting to the point where the previous term's videos are really watchable, and there's a lot of value there. But I'm also getting to the point where I want a lot of new content, and so that will mean that I think all previous terms, I can't cancel any classes, and we can't have all the student presentations during regular class time. So that's it's not just that I'm like a complete party person and I always want to party. It's also that I'm a kind of I like having a lot of lectures, a lot of different people speaking in the course. We can do more of that if we have the student presentations in the evening. What it's meant for previous students is, if you think the hours devoted to a course, they were devoting maybe, 20 more hours to this course than you would normally have to if you just take the standard teaching sessions. So it's something that I always felt I had to, ask them. We can't just do it. We have to. It has to be a, negotiation between me and the students. It may seem weird to you that I'm always asking whether things are okay, and maybe your other lecturers are more autocratic. It's a top-down, just telling you things. But part of it is for that reason, that some of the things we do in this course, from a human rights point of view, I need to make sure that it's okay with you, that we can't just arbitrarily decide those things. And so, also Future Day, which of course is only once a year, it's March 1st, but that's also another thing. Like this coming year, 2015, Future Day falls on a Sunday. So we're going to do something on a Sunday. We don't usually do things in this course on a Sunday. It'll be quite special, but it'll be voluntary. And as you probably know, last year's Future Day and the year before are quite interesting. And the street performer with the bullwhip who removed a big piece of pizza from my teeth with a bullwhip, that occurred on Future Day. It didn't have much to do with the future, and I don't think I ever want that kind of performer exactly again, but we could think of something else that would be equally dramatic, but a bit more in keeping with the thing. There's also that aspect of it. Other questions? Yeah.
This isn't really a question, but more of a comment. I think if you did the entrepreneur workshop at the beginning, it really bring students close together and like get them comfortable with one another, as opposed to like the middle of the semester. I don't know. I felt like I got to know people.
Well, what I felt is that, honestly, just the start of that, not the whole workshop, but just having you tell each other about each other and then change and assure that kind of every student gets to talk about what the general interests in life of the other students are. We could take a session of one of the early classes and simply do that and point out the exact reason that we're doing it, that you'll do this again when Shauna teaches here, but there was this continuous feedback that we ought to do this very early in the course. On the other hand, it doesn't make sense for Shauna to teach early in the course because the beginning of the course has to be well organized. We can't leave a lot of things to like the last moment, and yet her life is a very last moment life, like that she maybe gets the surgical resident on call schedule a week or so beforehand, and until that point, she doesn't really know what she can do on certain days. So so what has commonly happened in the past, which doesn't work very well, is we schedule her early on, and then she isn't able to do it. So I get here and she isn't here, and I have to do something else, and so on. So I think it would be better maybe to say that part of that we could actually do with me or somebody else, and you could simply do it second time. And things change, and each of you were so immensely interesting that even if you've already told people about yourselves in a previous session, to do it once again would be absolutely just fine. I don't think that. So does that make sense to you, or do you think there's some other approach to that? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Comments? I should tell you that it hasn't been manifest very much in this course, but we also have a kind of tradition of a kind of four-part participation in the course. We have the registered regular students with other people who just show up, and that's fine too. This course began as a CME course that you could get credit for by just showing up, like rounds in the hospital. That's the way it ran in fall of 2011. And we have the videography team, the professional videographers, and the amateur videographers. And sometimes in some classes they've all spoken. And if you think that the brightest comment is going to come from the registered students, you're absolutely wrong. That the professional videographer or somebody who shows up and is sitting in the seats and nobody knows who that person is may have the most interesting comments. So we haven't had quite as much of that this year. I think it's gradually gotten less, some of it, because in the beginning we had so few registered students that I was really pushing practically everybody that I knew and liked to come to the course, So we got a lot of really interesting people here with all sorts of leadership roles and so on. So on the other hand, it's nice for the registered students to feel that they're getting, an experience that is unique to being a registered student, and that kind of has been the case with you this term. So it's a trade-off, but that's the other thing that I wanted you to feel free to convey to people, that if they want to sit in on some of the lectures without signing up for the course, that's also perfectly fine. And sometimes they do that. We had a 17-year-old who shadowed me when he was a high school senior, and he kept coming to the course, and he never actually took it for a grade, but he came for 4 different terms, and he asked some really excellent questions. He's one of the bartenders at Earl's, so and he's a really excellent student. He doesn't spend all his time bartending at Earl's, but that's one of the things that he does. So yeah. So anyway, so I'm sure that there will be various other scenarios, like having Dr. Tuzinski's students come here, as happened last time. We haven't had exactly that scenario before. I'm open to practically anything, and because there isn't another course out there like this, experiments that we do and how the course runs could lead to something really, productive that we could write up as a paper, so on. So the paper that I wrote, as you know, has to do with the YouTube analytics, and you can not only look at how many total hits a video gets, but you can do it moment by moment of which slides or which parts of the videos get the most hits. And then you can also look at that over time. So the various things happen out there that suddenly lead to a lot of people to going to certain parts of the videos. So Dr. Tazinski was speaking at an IBM conference, and I guess they recommended that everybody at IBM listen to like the end part where he's talking about all the textbooks will need to be rewritten, incorporating quantum biology. So we ended up, after he went to IBM, with a huge number of hits of that little segment toward the end. Just an interesting phenomenon. So I think there are all sorts of other ways in which one can view what we're doing here and analyze it and talk about it, write about it. So that's also a potentially productive area for the future. Okay, great. We'll see you next Tuesday, and thank you. And I'm sorry that Jack wasn't able to come today, and he's also sorry about it.